Welcome. I sure do like a hot coffee. If you don't mind, I have a question for you. Do you like your coffee hot or perhaps your food hot? I sure do. Lukewarm food or a lukewarm coffee? I just don't prefer it as much. Now that might have seemed like a strange way to begin our conversation today, but today Jesus wants to talk to us about a lukewarm church. And the lukewarm church nauseates him. Let's talk about that together. Hi, we're in Revelation chapter 3, verses 14 to 22 again today. This is a passage in part 2 of our 3-part sermon series that's addressed to the church in Laodicea, which is modern Turkey. Now last week, we were introduced to the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the ruler of all creation. And that ruler of creation goes on to say in verse 15 to 17, Jesus says, I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish you were either one or the other. So, because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. You say, I am rich. I have acquired wealth and do not need a thing. But you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. The word of the Lord. Well, because this passage is locked between the bookmarks and is taken in isolation, I want to remind you that the goal of this passage is love and renewal. God, like a loving parent, wants to help the church discover life that's full and abundant. So next week, the climax of this 3-part message is fantastic, in my opinion. But before we get to that mountaintop, we need to linger in the valley for today. The valley involves being self-aware. For now, Laodicea is called lukewarm, and this nauseates Jesus. Well, what does lukewarm mean? Some people interpret the lukewarm to mean a lack of passion. That seems reasonable in most contexts. I mean, zeal and passion are what energize life and energize a church. Would you agree with that? I mean, without passion, life becomes boring, mundane, or stir-crazy. Passion makes the impossible seem more possible. Passion is what drives researchers these days to find a vaccination for COVID-19. And passion motivates frontline workers and pastors and others to keep going even when times of distress are around us. Passion for life, it can revive a marriage and churches. Therefore, in a parallel passage in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul will say in Romans 12, verse 11, he says, never be lacking in zeal. Never be lacking in passion. Never be lacking in enthusiasm, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. So it's clear to see why some would say that Revelations 3:15 means that we're to be red-hot Christians with zeal and passion to make the most of every opportunity. But the complication with that interpretation is, why would Jesus say that he would rather they be cold? Does God want them to be icy Christians? So that interpretation does raise some other questions. There's another context I'd like us to consider today. It's a geographical context. Laodicea didn't have very good water. And Laodicea was 6 miles away from the hot healing pools of Hierapolis. Now the hot healing waters spilled over a cliff right near Laodicea, as you see in this image. The water is rich with calcium carbonate, making the rocks white. And when the water cools down, the unknowing tourist who takes a sip will be nauseated if they drink it. But on the other hand of the hot pools of healing, there's Colossae, who is a village, a city close to Laodicea. Now, the two churches are mentioned several times in the book of Colossians. Colossae had a spring with cold, refreshing water. And because Laodicea didn't have its own water, it built water pipes to bring water to them, as you see here in one of these images. These pipes that were built into rocks revealed an amazing ingenuity of the people of that day. But the water flowed slowly and was often lukewarm and unrefreshing. Therefore, Laodicea had neither healing waters nor cold, refreshing waters, meaning they were neither refreshing the spiritual weary nor healing the spiritually sick. This was nauseating to Jesus. I imagine that some of you who are watching this today might have also felt nauseated by a church experience in the past or present. Perhaps it did feel cold, but not refreshing. Or perhaps you witnessed red-hot opinions at a meeting, but not any healing or refreshment. It's nauseating, isn't it? We can identify with Jesus. Well, the Laodicea church, they had good theology. They probably sang all the right songs. So how did they get lukewarm? I think one word might summarize it: compromise. The Laodicea church had wealth. They thought that they could use their riches for the future. Jesus quotes them as saying, "I am rich. I have acquired wealth and do not need a thing." The church didn't think they really needed Jesus, even though they worshipped him, because of their self-sufficiency, their success. In fact, this church was unaware of its depravity. As Jesus would say in verse 17, "You do not realize," ponder that, "you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked." Wow. The church didn't get it. They were bankrupt in the spirit life. They were blind to things that they couldn't see in the spiritual realm, thinking if they had money to buy things they could see, everything was okay. They were naked before God, even though the area was known to make some of the finest fashions in those days. This church was out of fellowship with Jesus because they thought they were self-sufficient. You know, Augustine or others have commented about to have everything in life, but a relationship with Jesus is really a sign of poverty. Now, Jesus isn't sharing an opinion. We learned last week that he's the Amen, the faithful and true witness. And so he is speaking something here, which is truth, not just opinions. But he loves this church, and he's not going to give up on them. That's why this is so important. Now, I'm going to have to pause there in this journey, because next week we are going to witness how Jesus moves towards the church to bring healing and renewal. He wants to come in and bring life. He also gives some great promises to those who are faithful. But for today, to be spiritually healthy, we need to take to heart that a church needs to bring healing and refreshment to others. Both of those paths will lead people to a relationship with Jesus. So lukewarm, in this case, appears to be because of earthly wealth. Money can easily distract a church. Amen? But more specifically, when we exclude Jesus from any area of our life, there usually isn't refreshment or healing of ourselves or of others. The fire goes out. The well dries up. And, well, things taste a little bit lukewarm and can be nauseating. So I invite you not to get lost on this point, but to come back next week as we see how Jesus helps and blesses this church who thought they had it all together, where everyone would say, no, I'm fine, I'm good. But Jesus knows deep down that the happiness, that sense of purpose, that sense of blessing on the inside was eluding them. If you join us next week, based on Jesus' words, I want to promise you will be blessed. And thanks for joining in the conversation today. I'm going to go reheat my coffee.